Hello, and welcome to Chop That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I am Shauna, and today we are bringing you another pre-con deep dive that we so love to do. In this video, we're going to break down all the cards in the deck and talk to you about what the deck is meant to do and how to use it wisely. And if you hang out with us till the end, we'll talk about some cards that you might want to try to add if you have them or want to buy them. So we'll talk about some ways to make the deck even better. It's a very fun deck, though. Without further ado, Leslie, tell us about this deck's commander and what it's meant to do.
Leslie, that's me. I am super excited about these two commander decks for Kamigawa. Of course, I always say that. I know anyone that's watched all our videos is always like, I love
We're
this deck.
excited.
But
We're
I do.
excited.
We were both like, we want to buy both of these decks.
Yeah.
So this deck commander is Kotori Pilot Prodigy. The deck is all about vehicles and making them cheaper. So the keyword on this card is crew, and it gives all of your vehicles crew 2, which is going to be super helpful for some of those ones that crew 8. Basically, how you crew something is you tap a creature and basically you're putting it in that vehicle. If for whatever reason the vehicle gets blocked or killed or something like that while it's a creature, then those creatures that are inside the vehicle are safe and the vehicle dies. And it basically just turns that inanimate vehicle object into an artifact creature, which is important for the second part of this.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature, which could be your vehicle or a different artifact creature you control, gains lifelink and vigilance until the end of turn. Of course, if it's a vehicle at the end of combat, your people are going to hop out of it and it's going to return to your garage and just be a vehicle again, which also then makes it harder to kill. So that is what this deck is basically about. You're going to uh, do a lot of flying as well, which is nice in this deck, but we'll get to that as we go. The breakdown of this deck, what are the guts of it, Shauna?
So the mana curve on this deck is fairly aggressive, actually, because you want lots of little creatures that can crew your vehicles. So your vehicles are a little bit more on the higher end, and then you need your little guides to crew them. So we've got 4 at 1 mana cost, 17 at 2, 16 at 3, 15 at 4, and 11 at 5 and up. So it's fairly fast.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the color breakdown goes, we've got 19% blue and 19 cards that are blue and 19 cards that are white. And then we have 18 colorless, so that's your vehicles and stuff to go along with it. And then you've got a few multicolor, there's 7 of those. And then we broke down the card types into a little bit different because of the vehicles versus artifacts like your mana dorks and stuff, your mana stuff. So we've got 15 creatures, 12 sorceries and instances, 2 enchantments, 5 just plain artifacts, so like your mana rocks, and 15 artifact vehicles, and 13 artifact creatures. So there's a lot of artifacts, so you kind of like 50% artifacts, but those are broken down a little bit there. And then you have 1 planeswalker.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be talking about this deck as far as a formula that we like to use. And I'll let Leslie tell you a little bit about that formula.
Sure. This lovely formula is not our formula. We found it, but it's pretty encompassing of a mid-range beginner commander deck and what you want to put in it. So if you're building your first commander deck for the first time, you could use this type of formula. I know when Sean and I build our decks, we like to kind of compare it to this just to see like, oh, did we miss something? So for example, you're going to have your commander. You want about 15 cards in your deck that help you ramp or get extra mana. These are your mana dorks or your mana rocks. You want to have at least 15 removal in your deck. Of course, you can never have enough removal in our opinion, but so you could go up or down. All of these fluctuate 1 or 2 up or down. Card draw, you don't want to forget your card draw. So 13 cards that will let you do that. 12 that are high impact. These are the cards that are going to win you the game, that are going to do lots of work for you, and maybe have some of those other categories in them, like removal or card draw or ramp as well. So anytime you can get something into this category, that's great. And then you want some support, because not all your cards, well, I guess all your cards could be high impact, but then you're making a much more powerful deck. And that's okay
Mhm.
if you're in the right play group. So just be cognizant of that. So 10 support, and then around 34 to 37 lands. So all of those fluctuate up and down, and that's what we're going to be comparing this deck to, and just seeing how it shapes up with this formula and why it does or doesn't, and whether we think that's good or not. So what's our
Yeah.
first section, Shauna?
Our first section is that ramp mana generating fixing section. So the formula calls for 15, and the deck we feel has about 13 in there. So yeah, the first ones are the typical Soul Ring, which is Earth 2 mana kind of thing, and Felwar Stone, which is adding a mana of any color from your opponents. This Azoria Signet, of course, you want signets in your commander decks of multicolors, so that one is the blue and white. And then the Arcane Signet, which is the new commander staple that everyone wants because it's tapping for any mana in your commander's color identity.
Yeah. So when we talk mana rocks, that's what we're talking about. We have
Yeah.
a new one that has just come out. It's a new vehicle. So Aerial Surveyor is that has flying as an ability. It's a 3/4. And whenever Aerial Surveyor attacks, if defending player controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic plains card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Now, this one organically has crew 2, so it's just sitting there as a vehicle, and when it becomes crewed, it becomes a 3/4 artifact creature. So for till the end of turn.
Yeah. And then we have Raider's Carve, which came out in Kaladeim as a vehicle. It's a 4/4 for 3, so it's a big vehicle. Whenever it attacks, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield tapped. So it's going to do some work for you, hopefully. But it does cost 3 to crew.
Unless you have your commander out.
Unless you have your commander out.
Cultivator's Caravan is one that just adds 1 mana of any color.
It's really good.
Yeah, you can just tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So that ability, does it have to be crewed to use that ability, or
no, it does not.
So yeah, so that ability is just innate on the card. You can just have it there to use as mana because it's an artifact with that ability. But then when you crew it, it's a 5/5 and can be swingy. So that's a nice little one. That one came out in Kaladesh. Kaladesh was the first big set that had like a whole bunch of vehicles in it for us to use.
I remember that card was expensive to buy because it was so good, because it's that 2 things, right, that you need. You need it to be mana for the first little while, and then it turns into this big creature.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ethereum Sculptor, it is a 1/2 for 2, a 1 and a blue, and artifact spells you control, or you cast, cost 1 less to cast. That's going to be really useful, and it's going to make you even more rampy. You're going to get going really fast.
Yeah. Sometimes mana generators aren't giving you mana, they're helping you not cost so much. So
yeah.
Veldekin Engineer for 2, 1 and a blue is a 1/1, and you can add 2 mana of any color to your of any one color to your mana pool. You can spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. Now, remember, 50% of our deck, actually a little bit more than 50% of our deck, is artifacts. So this guy's going to do some work for you. Great little mana dork there.
So, for example, it's going to make this Foundry Inspector, which is in here, that costs 3. It's going to make it 2 less. And if you have another one out, it could be free, potentially, folks. Could be free. And he is going to help you as well. It's a 3/2 for 3. He's going to make your artifacts cost 1 less as well. So that's insane value.
Yes, and actually that's a really good point, Shauna, that you made about could be free. So the only things that can really potentially be free in Magic the Gathering are ones that have this little colorless symbol. So Goldmer is another one. It costs 2, and it's just add 1 to 1 planes or yeah, 1 planes to your mana pool or white to your mana pool. So if you have both Foundry Inspector and Ethereum Sculptor that make your things cost 1 less, 1 colorless less, this one you can just put on the battlefield for free. So then you can also put on Silvermer, which is tapping for blue, onto the battlefield for free, and you're just going to be able to ramp really quickly in that case. The only time it matters for mana is when it has like a pip, a color pip in there.
Though there are some cards that give you the tap for those colors too.
Exactly, so
yeah. Those could be free as well. I'm thinking of the red-green deck that I was excited about that's coming up here.
Yeah.
Then we have Solemn Simulacrum. It's for 4, but can you imagine paying less for this thing? It's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land and put that on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And when it dies, you may draw a card.
Oh man, this deck has the potential for turn 1, if you have all this stuff in your hand, to be crazy, because let's say we just put out those other MERS. Now you don't have to wait for artifacts to tap them. So that's another thing that to remember is that
well, they're creature ones though.
These ones are creature artifacts. Creatures have summoning sickness, but anytime you put out an artifact like Sol Ring that comes out, you don't have to wait.
Or Cultivator's Caravan.
Exactly. You can just tap it for mana right away. So our next section is removal. It says we should have our formula says we should have 15. This deck has about 10. So it's a little light on the removal. But there are some in our high impact that might also do some of that stuff for us. The first one is Organic Extinction for 8 and 2 white. Really high mana cost on this one, 10, but it does have Improvise, which is kind of another mana helper, because you can use your artifacts to help cast spells. So all these vehicles that you have on the battlefield that are just sitting there doing nothing until you can crew them, you can use them and tap them for mana instead in order to cast a spell that has Improvise, and this is destroy all non-artifact creatures. So again, 50% of your deck is artifacts. If you have your artifacts or your vehicles already crewed, your dudes are inside the vehicles safe, so they won't
well, they're affected by this.
They'll die, but
you use them,
but you've already used them to crew, so your vehicle is already alive. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you. Yeah, so that is a nice little removal card.
Yeah,
it's a new one.
Okay, this one, Release to Memory for 3 and a white, is an instant that says exile target opponent's graveyard. For each creature card exiled this way, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. So make sure you time that one correctly. You want to take advantage of having lots of creatures in graveyards. So this helps with those graveyard shenanigans deck that Shauna likes to play. You're gonna do that to her and make her all her stuff go away.
And maybe right after you do this board wipe that kills all non-artifact creatures.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a new counter spell.
Good plan.
This. Yeah, we have a new counter spell in this. Access denied. I love the title of that, because when you play it, you can be like, actually, access denied. So for 3 and 2 blue, which is actually really expensive for a counter spell, we have an instant, which is counter target spell, but it also allows you to create X/1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, where X is that spell's mana cost. So if you use this on something, you see that they're tapping for 7 or 8, then that's when you want to use this one and just keep some stuff. I always have trouble with counter spells because I hate leaving mana untapped. I'm like, but I could play stuff. And so just like putting 5 mana aside and not doing anything with it is really hard for me. But if you're able to do that, then you'll like this. I might switch that card out.
Yeah. Too funny. Surge Hacker Mech for 4. It's a 5/5 with Menace. That's going to be tricky. It's a vehicle though. So when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. That's awesome. And it has crew 4. So again, if you want to have this when your commander's out, so that it's only crew 2. Is it 2? Yeah, 2.
And the classic, now we're getting into some of the cards that were already around. So Cataclysmic Gearhulk is one that's just an artifact creature in and of itself. It's a construct. Costs 3 and white for 4/5 with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among non-land permanents they control and sacrifices the rest. So it just kind of clears the board up, but gives people some stuff. Of course, you can choose, if something is an artifact creature, you can choose it as an artifact or a creature. So you can maybe keep 2 artifact creatures, for example. So you will have more choices in this, I think, than others.
Yeah, more than likely. Crush Contraband. It is the 3 and white instant that we've seen before. Choose one or both. You exile target artifact or target enchantment. Could do both possibly, so that's really handy.
Dispatch is an instant and it's tap target creature, but it has Metalcraft, and if you control 3 or more artifacts, exile that creature. You will control 3 or more artifacts in this deck. It only costs 1 though, so just like don't be too hasty. Make sure you're picking. A lot of times people try to be like, oh, I need to like get rid of that thing. Just wait. It's an instant.
There's going to be something worse.
There's probably something worse, and you can wait until they target you with it before you dispatch it, right? So maybe if they're not doing anything to you, just leave them alone.
Yeah, for now. Same with this one, Generous Gift. We've seen this one before. It's so cute. It's for 2 and a white, an instant that says destroy target permanent, and its controller gets a 3/3 green elephant creature. So Leslie has used this on me several times. We've seen this in lots of our games online. It's just, again, hey, if you're going to swing at me with that great big angel or that great big stompy dude, yeah, I'm just going to give you an elephant instead.
Yeah. Another just in case staple, Swords to Plowshares for 1. It's an instant, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power, so that's kind of a downfall for them, but you get a 1 mana cost exile, which is nice. And again, you just use it when you need to. So
this card, Reality Shift, is for 1 and a blue. It's an instant. Exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of their library. So that means they take that card and they put it down, face down on the battlefield, and it's a 2/2 creature. And then they can, if it's a creature, they can play that they can turn it face up for its mana cost. So it's a risky move, but it's a bold move.
It's also a good way, if you're not using it as removal, to get something off of your one of your creatures. Like if they've made it super like innate and put like dark steel stupid beetle on it or something like that.
Exactly.
You can maybe exile your commander so it goes back to the command zone, and then you get a creature out of it that maybe then you can cast, which might be beneficial to you. So yeah, getting rid of something that they've enchanted and is no longer good for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Our next section is card draw and tutors. Our formula says 13, and this deck has 12, so it's right on par where it should be for getting
blue
stuff
into
our hands. It is blue after all. The first one is a new card. It's a flash flying artifact creature monk wizard for 5, so 4 and a blue for a 3/3. And whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You have lots of artifact creatures. That includes your vehicles as well as, regular artifact creatures. Plus, this has flash. So if you play it, we always say instants and creatures that have flash are for combat tricks. So you wait until someone doesn't block stuff. Because, it's just like 4. That's fine. I'll take 4 because you're sending 4 1/1 Thopters at me. And then you flash this in, and now you get to draw 4 cards, and it makes it worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Universal Surveillance for X and 3 blue. It has improvise as well, though, so your artifacts can help you cast that. and you draw X cards. So you've got those little Thopters that you don't want to swing with right now. You're going to tap them and help pay for the X cost in this card and draw lots of cards anyways. So, you know, it's such a great way to get a lot of cards for cheap if you want.
Yeah. And our planeswalker in this deck is Jace, Architect of Thought. We haven't seen Jace in a little while, so I'm happy to see him. He is a legendary planeswalker with 4 loyalty points that he comes in with, and his +1 ability is until the end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, it gets -1, -0 until the end of turn. So it just kind of tells him to settle down, don't be so aggressive. And then you can reveal the top 3 cards for -2. You can reveal the top 3 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles and puts one of those in. You put one of those into your hand and the other into the bottom of your library in any order. And so you get to pick your opponent and see kind of like who you're friends with around the table and who might, you know, put things in the right piles for you. You're going to use it probably for that the most in this deck, which is why we put it in card draw. If you happen to get it to -8, which you usually don't, but if you do, then for each player, search that player's library for a non-land card and exile it. Then that player shuffles their library, and you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So that's its -8, and if you do happen to get it to that when you still have 3 opponents or 4 opponents, then you get 4 cards for free or 3 cards for free, which is fantastic. So if you see this on the battlefield, don't let it get to 8.
No. Then we have my little dwarf boy from Kaladesh Days, Shram, Senior Edificer. I always have loved this card. It's a 2/2 for 2 little dwarf advisor that whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle, you get to draw a card. He does a ton of work for you in this deck. Love it.
And another kind of artifact deck staple is Emry Lurker of the Loch. This one's from Throne of Eldraine. It's a legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. So the opposite way, it's likely just going to cost 1 blue for a 1/2. And when she enters the battlefield, you get to put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Which you're like, what? Why would you want to do that? Why do I want stuff in my graveyard? Well, let me tell you. You get to tap it and choose a target artifact card in your graveyard, and you may cast that card this turn. So it doesn't matter if it was put there that turn. It's a good way to get your artifacts that might have died or been removed back onto the battlefield. She's going to do some work for you.
Exactly. And Hannah, Ship's Navigator, this is a very similar card as that one for 1 and a white and a blue. She's a 1/2, but her job is to just be out there and return target artifact or enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. So that is going to do a lot of work for you. You're going to want to make sure you keep her there as a blocker because with the 2-butt, she's pretty good. And then on their end step, you're going to evaluate the situation and then figure out which artifact or enchantment you want to bring back from your graveyard and tap her and then get to be your turn. And then do some damage and do some stuff.
Like dance revolution, because you're gonna dance of the man.
Oh my god, no. Hate this card. So mean.
X and a white and a blue for a sorcery. You return X target artifacts and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with converted mana cost of X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is more than 6, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. So if you tap this, let's say for 5, you tap 5 and 2 more, then you get to return 5 target artifacts with a converted mana cost of 5 or less from the graveyard. If you choose 6 or more, then same thing, whatever that number is, but they're also 4/4 creatures, which will be nice for
your Soul Ring becomes a 4/4.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Could win you the game. Riddlesmith for 1 and a blue. It's a 2/1. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may draw a card. But if you do, you discard a card. But so what? You're going to put stuff you want to play later in your graveyard. Why not?
Sigh, oh sigh, the master thopterist. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless thopter artifact creature token with flying. And this lovely gentleman has 1 and a blue to sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card. He's a 1/4, so he's a nice little blocker that just gives you some ongoing card draw benefits. And you can also use those thopters to crew your vehicles, which is super helpful in this deck.
Definitely. Arcanist Owl, it is for 4 hybrid mana, so that can be any combination of the blue and white that you have out. It is a 3/3 flyer, which is pretty strong. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them and put it in your hand. Chances are you're going to have hit something. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order.
And Thoughtcast, for 4 and a blue, has affinity for artifacts. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. So a little bit different than the ones that have, now I can't
Improvise.
Thank you. That have improvise. It's just going to cost 1 less to cast for each artifact. So again, likelihood is this guy is going to be just 1 blue to cast, and you get to draw 2 cards. So 1 blue for 2 cards is great. 5 blue for 2 cards, not so great. So make sure you're casting this when you have artifacts on the battlefield.
Yeah, definitely. Smuggler's Copter. This is going to be one of those cards that you're going to cast for free, probably, if you're smart, thinking about it. It's a 3/3 flying for 2. And when it attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. And its crew is only 1. Use it wisely. You're going to get in for some serious damage and draw some cards. Clean up your hand.
So one thing to know, because that crew is 1, when your commander is out on the battlefield, her ability says vehicles you control have crew 2. So it's not just when it benefits you.
Good point.
So in this case with Smuggler's Copter, it will actually cost you more if your commander is out. But that's fine. It's not that much more. Now we're on to the next section, which is high impact cards. This is a fun section, and our formula says 12 and our deck has 13. So we got a good number of high impact cards. Oh gosh, of course I have one that I have to try and say right off the bat. Shorakai Genesis Engine is a vehicle, mythic 8/8. It has crew 8, but hopefully it's only crew 2. You can pay 1 and tap it to draw 2 cards, then discard a card, so it's got the card draw on it. Plus, you can create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. So it's a 1/1, but it crews things as a 3. So these little pilots are nice little things. Also, Shorakai Genesis Engine can be your commander. So you can decide to switch this out if you want and put it as your commander. So
you can actually, your little 1/1 pilot, you only need 1 to crew this thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. If you're commander.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it can be your commander, this card. That's cool. Nice. I missed that line as well. Read the card, Shauna. Okay. Drum Bellower. It is a 2/1 flyer for 2 and a white. You can untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So this way you can use them to crew vehicles as blockers, I guess?
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know. Yeah. That'd be helpful. Nice.
And it's a 2/1 flyer, which is nice.
Yeah.
Cyber Drive Awakener for 5 and a blue is a 4/4. It's flying. It has other artifact creatures you control have flying. So now all your vehicles are flyers. And when Cyber Drive Awakener enters the battlefield until the end of turn, each non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with a base power and toughness of 4/4. So you can use those little 4/4s to crew, or you can decide to just swingy.
Well, you don't have to crew. You can just use all your stuff.
That's what I'm
make
saying.
Them into 4/4s immediately.
Yeah. But
That's
if it's an
insane.
8/8, it would be better as an 8/8, right?
Yeah, true. Good point. And it's got flying as well. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh. That's a game winner.
I know. That's why I like this deck.
Yes.
I'm not using
Kappa.
Vigilance Lifelink.
Right. Kappa Cannoneer for 5 and a blue. It's a 4/4 and it has improvise. So you've got lots of ways to make these cards cheaper. An artifact creature as well. So that whole artifacts cheaper thing. It's a turtle warrior. It's kind of cute. And so did we explained improvise, right? That you have to
Yeah.
tap your, yeah. So it has ward 4, which means they can't touch it unless they pay 4. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on this little guy, and it can't be blocked this turn. That will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Another 4/4 smacking them in the face, plus whatever counters you get on it. Sweet.
Just in case you don't have that other guy out, the Aeronaut Admiral is flying, and vehicles you control have flying. So, you know, someone tries to beat down your flyers and keep you on the ground, you can be like, yeah, well, I got flying again.
Yep. Dang it. Thopter Spy Network for 2 and 2 blue. This was another card that I really liked in Kaladesh as well. It's an enchantment, so it's always there. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you create a 1/1 Thopter. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, very strong in this deck.
And it's an enchantment, so whereas Psi can be removed, this is a little bit harder to remove, which is why we put it in a higher impact.
Yeah.
And no deck is complete without having an angel in it. So Indomitable Archangel for 2 and 2 white is a 4/4 flying with Metalcraft. As we said before, artifacts you control have Shroud as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. So Metalcraft is weird because it's a keyword and it's different depending on what card it's on. So basically you just read your card and that's what that Metalcraft means. An artifact with Shroud can't be targeted by spells or abilities. It's important to remember that Shroud affects you as well. So you can't target it, they can't target it. It's just kind of sitting there all by itself.
Protected. Yes.
Can't put anything on it.
Yeah. You don't need to, though. You're going to kill everybody. Tashir's Ancestor's Apostle for 3 and a white. It's a 2/2 flying bird cleric that says whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So historic spells are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. I don't think there's any sagas in this deck, but there's definitely artifacts and legendary stuff that you can return.
Yeah. Parhelion 2 for 6 and 2 white is a 5/5 flying, first strike, vigilance vehicle, and when it attacks, you get to create 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are also attacking. They don't disappear at the end of the turn, and this is crew 4, but if you have your commander out, it's crew 2. Parhelion is Parhelion.
Oh, brother. So much flying. Gosh. And this one, Peace Walker Colossus for 3. It's a 6/6 vehicle. But its main job at the beginning of the game is going to be pay 2, and another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So you don't even need to, yeah. And you can stack that up. So you can pay 2 more than once and make your vehicles become creatures without having to crew them. So you lose all your crew, you still got vehicles, you're still fighting with this guy.
Someone does a board wipe and they destroy all creatures, no problem. Yeah. Peace Walker's got your back. Then we got Weatherlight. Flying 4/5 for 4 could be free because it's all colorless. Whenever Weatherlight deals combat damage to a player, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, which is a lot of cards to look at. You may reveal a historic card from among them. And remember, historic cards are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So you're going to probably have some artifacts in there that you want. And then you get to put it into your hand and then put the rest of the bottom of your library and some random order. So it's a nice way to dig through your deck. It's going to be kind of card draw, but we put it here because it's also a flying 4/5 vehicle.
Yeah. A Sovereign Console Flagship. It's a 5 cost. Again, it could be close to free. 6/5 flyer. When it enters a battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So it's some serious removal on a stick. It's going to hurt them a lot.
Or perhaps they have like a 5/5 on the battlefield and they could block and kill your vehicle. You can do 3 damage to their 5/5 and or like let's say it's a 6/6 or a 7/7, you do 3 damage to it, and suddenly they have to think twice about actually blocking because they may lose their creature as well. So
yeah.
Mirage Mirror for 3 is an artifact that you can pay to, and then it becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until the end of turn. It does not have to be your artifact, creature, enchantment, or land either. So if they have something that's super awesome and you want to mirror that thing, you can. Or if you have something that's super awesome, you can mirror that thing, and now you have 2. So remember though that the legendary rule does still apply. So if you target something that's on your battlefield that's a legendary, then that will, one of them you'll have to sacrifice. So,
and you can do that more than once. You can pay 2 more than once.
Yeah, and it'll just replace that thing because it becomes a copy of, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yes. Whenever you need to, you can do it.
Yeah.
Whenever. Yeah. So then we're on to our other cards that are on theme, our other win conditions, special cards that help your deck's overall performance. So the formula calls for 10. This deck has what we think is 14. The first one there is the Iron Soul Enforcer. It's a 4/4 for 4 and a white. It's an artifact creature, so it counts for both. And whenever it or a commander you control attacks alone, so this is something that's new with Samurai in this set. When they attack alone, in this case, you return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The battlefield. And pulling your stuff out of your graveyard, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah. Swift reconfiguration. This is for to help you out when someone does a board wipe, basically. So it is an enchantment aura with flash, so you can play it at instant speed. Enchant creature or vehicle. An enchanted permanent is a vehicle artifact with crew 5. It loses all other card types. You can also attach it to theirs as well. So that creature that they are trying to get rid of or get off your battlefield, you can enchant it, and then all of a sudden it's a vehicle instead of a creature, and they can't kill it because it's not a creature anymore. You can turn one of their big dudes into a vehicle. It loses all other abilities and things like that as well. So, and it has crew 5, so they may not have the ability to crew things at lower speed. So now they have to choose what they want to do. I would probably use this on something that they have, rather than using it to save my stuff. But there's a couple options with that one.
Exactly, which is what we like. The Imposter Mech, it's a 3/1 for 1 and a blue that is a vehicle as well, with crew 3. You may have Imposter Mech enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle artifact with crew 3 and loses all other card types. So there's another case where you steal their good stuff and turn it into something awesome on your side.
Yeah, and because it's a vehicle, it's going to be hard to get rid of, right? So it's no longer a Lyra Angel 5/5, but it still has all of those things and is a vehicle that's safe from creature removal.
Yeah.
Katsuma's the Animator for 2 and 2 blue is a 3/3 flyer. You can pay 3, and until the end of turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature and gains flying. If it's not a vehicle, it has base power and toughness of 1/1 until the end of turn. If it's a vehicle, then it has its base power and toughness. And At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 3 target non-creature artifacts. So it's a 1/1, but this last ability, you're going to just keep putting counters, 1/1 counters on your soul rings and your arcane signets and all of those little things that are on the battlefield that are non-creatures, and your vehicles are not creatures either until they're crewed. So you can put 1/1 counters on your vehicles and suddenly everything gets really big. So we put it in this because like it's pretty high impact. We put it in this though because it's situational and you have to have stuff to put 1/1 counters on for it to be good.
Imperial Recovery Unit. It is a 3/4 for 2 and a white, so it's a vehicle as well. Crew 2. Whenever it attacks, return target creature or vehicle card with mana cost value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Again, there's that graveyard recursion stuff, so it's going to be awesome.
Mobilizer Mech is a 3/4 flyer, and when it becomes crewed, up to one other target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until the end of turn. So basically, you crew this one, and it crews another one automatically for free.
Yeah. Not good. And then we have a Prodigy's Prototype for 1 and a blue and a white. It's a 3/4 vehicle. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, you get to create little 1/1 pilot, which again, those are awesome to have out. And this is crew 2. So you're going to make some more crews for other vehicles. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I guess the crews for 2 greater. I keep reading this too, that the pilot crews for 2, but no, the pilots that you make crew for 3 on all of them. So that's kind of cool.
Right.
Mer Smith is one that's been around for a little while. 2/1 for 2. And whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1 if you do create a 1/1 colorless Mer artifact creature token. Because, of course, your vehicles are worth nothing, even if they're crew 2, if you don't have things to crew them. So all of these cards will help you get dudes on the battlefield to crew with.
Yeah. Master of Ethereum. It's for 2 and a blue, and it's an artifact creature, a wizard, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts you control. So think of how many little crews you have out there. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it has the potential to be a really high impact card. It's not guaranteed though, so yeah. Whirler Rogue is a little 2/2 for 4. Why would you pay 4 for a 2/2? Well, let me tell you. When Whirler Rogue enters the battlefield, you get to create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, and then you can tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. So you're going to have lots of little dudes over there that you can just use to make stuff unblockable. Those rogues. It's like it's better than Rogue's Passage, this one. So
doing some nasty stuff. This is Raph from Dominaria, the ship's mage. He has flash and flying, a 3/3, and you may cast historic spells as though they had flash. So suddenly all your artifacts have flash.
Yeah.
This could be so crazy.
Yeah. Shimmer is another flash one, and it says that you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. So same thing, 2/2 for 3 with flash, and it might be free because it's all colorless. So crazy.
Armed and Armored for 1 and a white. It's an instant that says vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. So that one's not necessarily going to be a thing in this deck so much, but the fact that your artifacts can become creatures is going to be a big deal.
And finally, our last one in this deck is Colossal Plow for 2. It only costs 2, which is crazy. For a 6/3 vehicle, whenever Colossal Plow attacks, you get to add 3 mana and you gain 3 life until the end of turn. You don't lose mana as steps and phases end, so you can use it on your second main phase. It usually isn't used, this card, because it has a crew 6, but suddenly you have your commander out, and this is a crew 2, and this is a crazy, crazy high impact card. But if you don't have your commander out, it's fine. That's why it's in the support instead.
Yeah, that's right. Then we have our land section. So the formula calls for about 34. This deck has 37. And so that's some places that you can maybe do trim some fat and maybe do some of the upgrades that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But I'm going to let Leslie tell you about the land here
Sure.
because she loves it so much.
So this deck, even if you don't want to buy it, well, you should buy it for how awesome it is. But this deck also comes with two of the ukiyo-e Japanese art lands, which are beautiful, beautiful lands. I love this this theme that they've got going in Kamigawa. And this is just an art form and from Japan where the artists use wood blocks and prints and prints and paintings of subjects of female beauty and scenery and folk tales and things like that. So if you ever see that they are ukiyo-e lands, it's just the art form that they're using, but they're beautiful, and so we thought it would be worth mentioning that you do get to in this deck.
Yeah. All right, so then into the tweaks. So thank you for hanging out with us this long. We've got some tweaks that we were thinking about. We really struggled with tweaking this deck because it's so good.
It doesn't really need any tweaks. Like you can play this out of the box and not make any changes to it. Everything kind of fits the formula. It's on par. Of course, you're going to have your own play style, and so yeah.
Yeah. The first one we thought is a new card, Reality Heist. It's for 5 and 2 blue. It's an instant though, but it costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control, and that could potentially be only a 2 cost then. And then you look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 artifact cards from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So it just helps with that getting to what you need kind of situation. So, which blue loves to do.
Probably better than some of the other card draw that they have in there. So
yeah,
it's a good card. We also thought Silent Submersible would be a good little vehicle to put in here. Card draw was a little bit lacking in this deck, or no, card draw was on par in this
deck. It was okay,
But yeah. Anyway, so this was a 2/3 for 2, and when it deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, you get to draw a card. So if you need a little bit more card draw, or you want a little bit more card draw, it's a nice little 2/3 that gets you some stuff in your hand.
Then we've got the Fleetwheel Cruiser, which was another really fun vehicle from Kaladesh that Leslie and I both really liked. It's a 5/3 for 4 with trample and haste. And when it enters the battlefield, it's an artifact creature right away. So the very first time you play it, it does become a creature immediately. And then its crew is only 2. So it has trample as a 5/3.
Yeah.
It is a good card.
It's a good card. Cloud Key is another great one that you could maybe put in this deck for 3. As Cloud Key comes into play, you get to choose artifact, creature, enchantment, instant, or sorcery, and spells you play of the chosen type cost 1 less to play. So another kind of little make your artifacts cheaper. Of course, you're going to choose artifacts for this, hopefully.
Of course, yes. Then we have Joyra's Familiar, which I think is from Dominaria as well. It is, I can't remember, maybe it was not, but anyway, it's a little 4-cost 2/2 birdie that says historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So again, your artifacts are going to be yet another 1 less, and your legendaries. So your commander potentially as well.
So we have Born to Drive, which is another one from Kamigawa for 2 and a blue. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and or vehicle you control. So this is pretty much made for this deck. I don't know. Well, they can't put all the good cards in one deck, but it's only an uncommon, so it's fairly going to be fairly easy to get. And it has channel for 2 and a white. You can choose to play it for its channel cost instead and discard it and create 2 1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens that then crew for 3. So if you need pilots, you can use it for that, or you can just use it as an enchantment. So
I saw this card do a lot of work on the pre-release last night. Yeah. I saw it several times and I was like,
good to know. I'm pre-releasing today. So
yeah, it did a lot of work. Then we've got Traxos, my good buddy. I really like this card. It's a 7/7 for 4. He is a legendary artifact creature, but he has trample. The only problem with him is that he enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap unless you cast a historic spell, which you're going to be doing a lot. So he is a big, big boy. You're going to untap him and swing with him and untap him again and have him as a blocker. He is going to do a lot of work for you in this deck, I think, if you put him in there, and he's cheap to buy, really cheap.
If you're wanting to, sorry, my cat. If you're wanting to get some more dudes on the battlefield to help you crew things, Castle Ardenvale is also a good land to have in this deck because you can pay and just get 1/1 white human creature token onto the battlefield. Or you can just use it as a land. So if you're looking at tweaking, adding this land will just kind of help you if people keep doing board wipes and you don't have anything left to crew. So.
And then we have Tempered Steel, which is an auto include if you have it, honestly. It's for 1 and a 2 blue. It's an enchantment that says artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. It's just, yeah. If you got it, use it.
Yeah. Legion's Landing is another one that gets you a little 1/1 vampire creature token with lifelink. When you attack with 3 or more creatures, you get to transform it, and then it just continually makes little 1/1s for you. So again, a nice little thing. Yes, they're vampires, but they will help you crew. And so if you're having trouble, or if you find that when you play this you have trouble having creatures out, then that's another option for you.
Yeah. Then we've got this cute little elephant artificer. He is for 2 and a white. Lashiel, Clockwork Scholar. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. Only once each turn, but who cares? It's a big 2/4 that protects your dudes and gets you cards. It's awesome.
Yeah. Another auto include Chief of the Foundry if you have it. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. Same as Tempered Steel. Not quite as good, but +1/+1 is great.
And then Aethersworn Shield Mage for 1 white and a blue. It's a 2/2 with flash, an artifact creature that says when it enters a battlefield, prevent all damage that would be dealt to artifact creatures this turn. A little bit of protection. You've done all this work to get this big board state. You want to protect it if they decide to block everything.
Yeah, exactly. You flash that in, right? And oh, Kitty. Oh,
yeah.
He's sitting.
Kitty's back.
He's sitting on my keyboard and making things.
Oh dear.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're still
too funny.
Anyways, so that's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching. We would love to hear what you would like to tweak this deck with. If you have any suggestions for us, you can find us on YouTube and Twitch. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
tap those magic cards and have fun doing it.
Bye, guys.